Here we go. This is not your typical Frequent Miler on the Air episode.
This is a standalone segment we're calling Coffee Break.
Each coffee break segment will cover a single topic related to miles and points.
And each coffee break is limited to 20 minutes or your money back. Enjoy.
For today's coffee break episode, we've clipped out a few highlights from last night's live stream where we met up with our travelers in Kuala Lumpur and we announced our winner of the 2024 Frequent Miler Annual Travel Challenge, Flying by the Seat of Our Points. I'm sure we'll have lots of discussion yet to come about all the things the guys learned from this last-minute travel challenge. But in this particular episode, we're going to talk about their highlights and lowlights from the trip. What did they feel the best about and what did they feel the worst about during their trip? Give it a listen. So, Greg, what was your highlight of the trip and then lowlight of the trip for booking specifically?
For booking specifically, I'd say my highlight was finding the KLM business class flight from Vancouver to Zagreb, Croatia, with that brief layover in Amsterdam, because not only was, it seemed desperate, like from LA, trying to find something, and to get something that perfect was amazing. And then because it also positioned me so well for the onward flight that I literally just had the one stop to get here to Kuala Lumpur because I was so well positioned. So I'd say that was the highlight of my booking. And low light was the other one?
Yeah.
Okay, so my low light of booking, I'd say, was my plan to use a gift card from Capital One Shopping to book a hotel, because that gift card didn't come in time, so I didn't use that to book the hotel.
But
and
then
Nick's just sitting there being like, I can't believe that was your worst part of the trip.
I was very lucky. Booking flights was such a piece of cake on this trip.
Oh man! All right,
please rub it in a little bit more.
Yeah. All right.
I didn't try to do Avianca Life Miles, and I think both guys are jealous that I did not try to do that.
No, I'm thankful. On your behalf, I'm thankful for you.
Yeah, someone had to avoid it. All right, Nick, highlight and lowlight for bookings.
Okay, highlight is the flight home.
Fair.
Which
That's
even
fair.
that I couldn't do by myself, by the way. I had to call player 2 and she had to call to get that completed for me. So maybe that's why it's the highlight, because I didn't even have to deal with the hardest parts of it. No, nothing was particularly easy. And nothing really went the way I wanted it to. So it's hard to pick
No
a
highlights.
highlight on the way here. Yeah.
How about your bottom 5?
Is there a particular low light?
Yeah, I think, Life
So
Miles
much to pick from.
Yeah, Life Miles was really challenging and annoying. I had a number of problems with Life Miles. First was that the miles didn't transfer instantly. They showed up. Well, first of all, I went to transfer them right after buying the Life Miles Plus subscription. I transferred miles to Life Miles, and then I went to go book, and the Life Miles site went down for maintenance.
Ugh.
So like 2 minutes after I bought the subscription, the site was gone. So that was frustrating. And then finally, when it came back up, the miles still, as of now, this morning, and this was transfer on Friday, I guess, they still haven't shown up in my Avianca account. So that was really annoying because I had something great that I wanted to book and couldn't. So that would, from a booking standpoint, be, I think, the biggest trouble. And then when I finally decided, okay, you know what, we'll do it with player 2's miles, and I'll transfer to her account and book through hers, they did post instantly in her Avianca Life Miles account. So I was like, we're good to go. Went through and booked it. And as Tim mentioned, first payment method failed. second payment method failed, tried one card after another, they all failed. Eventually I had to call home and say, hey, I need you to call Avianca Life Miles for me because it was booked out of my wife's account. And so I had to walk her through that. We had to sit on hold with Avianca and then eventually come to find out that the hold was lost and we couldn't book that. So so I had a whole list of snafus, and that's only part of it still. So but from a flight standpoint, it was that Marrakesh to Frankfurt. It was a 1:20 a.m. departure for a 3-hour flight. So you're sleeping just over 2 hours. Yeah, that was not fun.
Man.
Yeah,
At least your
so-
sleep bank was super full at that point, right?
Right, yeah. Right, yeah.
We didn't even need it. Didn't even need it. We're just so happy that Nick made it here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That is an achievement. All right, Tim, highlight and low light for bookings.
Well, first of all, let me say that everybody
Booking.
should be on the lookout for the next week's Frequent Miler on the Air episode called "Learning to Hate Life Miles." It'll be a terrific show. So highlight, and this is we were talking about this last night. It's not the flashiest by any means, but I think probably my highlight was the just little Alaska regional flight that I booked to start off with British Airways Avios.
Wow.
Partially because it was great value. It was so much cheaper than everything else. And I didn't know for sure before that whether my Alaska benefits would transfer to that award redemption in the way that I had hoped. But if it did, I would get the exact literal seat that I was looking for on that flight, right? And so it was just cool that it was the one thing that it worked exactly the way I wanted it to from beginning to end. And it gave me, and that's actually a good learning point for me because it gives me a lot of confidence now booking Alaska awards with Avios, and Avios is the cheapest option because I know that my status benefits are all going to apply in exactly the way they would on Alaska when I'm booking an Alaska award, which is pretty cool. So that was probably my highlight.
Low light.
My low light, it's tough because like Nick, both of my international bookings were they were a struggle. And both of them, I found something that was really good fairly quickly, and then it was a struggle to get somebody to actually give it to me, But I would say that probably in retrospect, now that I know for sure that we came down here, it was the first night immediately finding terrific space to Zurich on Swiss Air, and then this perfect connecting flight to Bangkok that would work incredibly the whole way for 92,500 miles, than to struggle for hours.
So just to be clear, you're talking about you were going to use a 5,000 point stopover with Air Canada's program, so that you'd stop over in Zurich, and then move on to Bangkok, assuming that would position you well for the next stage.
Right, and I could always toss it away if I needed to.
And Bangkok is like really close.
Really close. Right.
So it would have been perfect.
Right. So effectively, it would have gone from, instead of paying 70,000 points just to get to Zurich, I would have paid 92,500 points to get all the way to Bangkok with the stopover in Zurich. And then all I would have had to do is pay the little $95 cash fare to get from Bangkok to Kuala Lumpur, as it turned out. And to struggle with all the Swiss Air Phantom space for literally hours. Transferred points to Aeroplan, transferred points to United, was trying to get this whole thing. And then to finally find that's not there, then to get that Lufthansa space that I ended up flying and realize, oh, I can still do this. And then to call up, and it's like, by now it's 2:00 in the morning local or whatever. And to hear that, oh no, Aeroplan's closed now, and you'll have to call back tomorrow after I would have needed to depart, was like, oh no.
It blows my mind that they're not 24 hours.
I know.
It's like
come
program
on.
with so many international partners. I can't imagine if you're overseas somewhere in a place where you have a problem with your flight, right? You can't get a hold of somebody.
Right.
If it's the middle of the night
Right.
in Canada, like that,
Right.
That's nuts to me.
Yeah, no, I until that, and that's actually another good learning point. Until that point, I never realized that Aeroplan closed. It just assumed to me that there would be somebody manning the ship.
You would think so.
Right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was probably, just in terms of like, oh no, that was probably the low light.
Yeah. What would you have done if that had worked out? I was actually guessing at one point that our final destination would be northern South America. I thought when we found out that Europe was like our first thing, it occurred to me, oh, they might send us back
Yeah.
for the final one. And I thought that would have been really cool. What if that had happened? What if you had that onward flight to Bangkok? Would you have taken it and then tried to get
Oh, I would have
tickets?
totally looked. I would have totally looked. And I would have just seen what would have better connections, because South America to Europe is neither Asia to South America or Europe to South America. None of that's well connected.
Yeah.
Which is why I didn't think they were going to do it, because he's an efficient man, but he's also a fair man. And I didn't think that they would send us back because there's so few relative routes to South America. That's what I was thinking. But if it had happened, I would have totally looked to seeing. And if I could have found something that like actually incorporated that at decent value, I totally would have taken that flight. Yeah, 100%.
That would have been cool. I think one of the cool things from this challenge is seeing all the things that go wrong, not because we're masochists over here, but because it is valuable to know, like, when things don't go perfectly and all the things that people are interacting with in their own bookings. So thanks for sharing all that, everybody. But I do want to hear each of your favorite activity real quick. Greg, favorite activity from the whole challenge?
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm gonna say that. Well, shoot, it's so hard. Everything we did yesterday was a highlight. The the fish thing, just because we laughed so hard. I mean, it's not something I would take my wife to. But the other,
You wouldn't.
but the other two I would.
Maybe you would love it, Mrs. Myler.
I'm gonna pick. Shoot.
Tie it. Make it a tie.
It's
Make it a tie.
it's a tie, and sorry that it's not a Malaysia, but it's a tie between Nick's experience and Tim's.
All right. All right. Nick, how about you?
So wait, we're picking favorite from just the ones here or from the entire
No,
challenge?
from the whole trip.
From the entire, any
Yeah.
activity
Whole
you've
trip.
experienced.
Highlight
Like your
activity.
1:30 a.m. flight.
Right. For me, I think it'd be dinner at the place that I went in Morocco. The
Nice.
live jazz music was cool. It was just a 3-piece band, but it was very cool. They were very good. They played a good variety of stuff, and the food was delicious. It was so big. So that I ordered the chicken in a tagine, and I ordered one appetizer, and the menu had said you should probably order like 2 or 3 of the appetizers per person. But I explained, I'm going to order this chicken tagine, like, is one enough? And she's like, well, one's probably enough. She was a little hesitant. And so I had the one appetizer, and then that tagine opened up and I saw how much chicken was in there. And I was like, well, I didn't need an appetizer at all. I felt like I ate my face off. Like I wanted to explode. And it looked like I hadn't eaten anything, and I didn't want to leave any of it there. So I kept eating and eating and eating until I was so uncomfortable. And but it was delicious. It was so good. So that was fun. The service was really good. I had a reservation at 9:30, so I sat at 9:30, and at 11:50 she asked if I'd like to order dessert, and I was like, no, I need to get some sleep and book my way to Kuala Lumpur. So so I couldn't even stay for dessert. I said, I thought about it for a second. I said, I really want it because everything has been so delicious. But yeah, so that was probably my favorite.
Nice.
Highlight.
That did look really legit.
It was good.
All right, Tim, of your activities, highlight.
Definitely the fish.
That
Cute fish spa.
would be one that I would think about for sure. Yeah. It would be, I enjoyed that durian experience. Like if I took all of the activities as just a straight experience, it would probably be the Batu Caves if I was inputting Nixon. It's just because I've always wanted to see him, and it was cool to actually be there. If I'm picking from just mine, it would be neck and neck between the durian tasting, and that was also fun because we got to do it together.
Yeah.
And so it's just fun to.
That's the thing. I had to pick from something we did together because
Right.
it's so much more
Right,
fun.
like-
Yeah.
Getting my feet eaten by myself by cannibal fish would have been
not as
Insane.
not as fun. Not as
It's
fun.
insane.
Right.
Not as fun.
It's making me squirm.
Not as fun.
Yeah.
Not as fun. But I really had I had a blast, and it wasn't really the challenge. It was kind of the way I just kind of tried to gussy up the challenge. going down the California coast
Hmm.
Yeah.
and like
Yeah,
stopping
that
for the
looked
beach
nice.
walks and doing
Yeah.
all getting the food from all the different places. Like that was just an awesome day. Like that was just a fun day. So I'm going to tie too.
I should have said that my favorite experience was how easy it was to book flights during this trip.
Nice.
Cruel, cruel. So, question for each of you, one at a time. Do you wish you had more time in each location that you went? And put another way, would you go back, I guess?
Sure.
Yes.
Starting with Greg.
To LA, probably not, but for I probably will though. But yeah, absolutely. I'd love to go back to Croatia, to Zagreb even though I'm more interested in, I want to see Dubrovnik and Split and so on, but Zagreb was great, and Malaysia, I mean, we've just touched the surface,
Oh, yeah.
really, so I definitely want to come back to both.
Yeah, I mean, I
Right.
think it's hard to say no to either of those. Like, of course, it'd be great to have more time to see more things, and yeah, I mean, we were people who love to travel, so I feel like it's hard to throw a place at us that we wouldn't be interested in going back to see something different about.
Yeah, absolutely. And like
Yeah.
Nick always says every year that like none of us would actually choose to do this trip on our own.
Right.
We do these for fun and to show various possibilities and things, but we would absolutely want to stay at each of these destinations far longer than we have.
Yeah. All right. 2 more questions. This one's for Nick. Sorry to do this to you, Nick. Do you
Uh-oh.
regret Chicago?
You know, I regret Chicago. No, do I wish I could have found a flight to New York that night? Yes. And actually, in hindsight, what I think probably went wrong, I didn't see anything available. So the reason this question is coming up is because if I had stayed overnight in LA, well, first of all, if I had stayed overnight in LA, it wouldn't have worked. But getting to Morocco was tough because I was in Chicago and I couldn't get to New York in time for the New York to Morocco flight. And then I had a hard time finding other stuff. Do I regret choosing Chicago? Not really, because I was a short flight from Dallas, or I could have gotten to New York or Boston or DC or other places. I just couldn't find available flights. If I could have gotten to New York, then it would have been a totally different experience because I would have been in Morocco way earlier than I was and with a lot simpler routing. So would I have preferred that? Yes. Now, here's the tip that is going to seem very intuitive to many of you, but to those of us that live on the East Coast, maybe not. I didn't see any availability on Los Angeles to New York flights that night. I think what was probably the problem was that my clock's computer was past midnight
Your
already.
computer's clock.
My computer's clock.
That Dorian didn't work.
You know,
so well.
either way.
No,
Either
We're
way,
gonna take off
honestly.
point from Tim's challenge.
The
after
clock
all.
on my computer was set on Eastern time. So I think like I there were some programs where I wasn't able to search for availability on the correct
Interesting.
date because not because
That
there was
is a
nothing
good tip.
available, but because the time wasn't set.
Yeah.
Once I set it back to West Coast time, then I was able to find more stuff than I had found initially. So I think I probably missed some
That
availability.
is
Sure.
a
And it literally,
wild.
he realized this on the way to the airport.
On the way to the
That
airport.
is
So
a
he had
wild
already booked
error.
a Chicago flight, was on the way to the airport, and then was like, "Oh, I wonder."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could have changed the whole challenge because
It
if you got to
could've.
Morocco
Yeah,
sooner,
and if
sooner
you'd
you
gotten
could
in
have left
early,
to
you could have
Morocco
taken that Air
sooner.
France flight out Saturday morning.
Right,
and,
right.
Yeah. it
Yeah.
would've all-
It would
Wow.
have been far different
Yeah.
than it was.
Here I was
so-
feeling guilty for sending you to
So-
Morocco.
So so it's really time zone's fault that
Right.
Nick
Yeah,
lost. the
that's right.
It's
challenge.
the clock's
That's right.
computer's fault.